The day humans finally said enough. A moment no civilization will forget, the breaking point, the observation deck of Research Station. Kepler-7 offered a view that never failed to take Dr. Sarah Chen's breath away. Beyond the reinforced glass, the Andromeda spiral stretched across the darkness like a river of light. She had been staring at that view for 3 hours now, unable to sleep, unable to stop thinking about what she had discovered. Sarah was 41 years old, a quantum physicist who had dedicated her entire adult life to pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. She had left Earth 15 years ago, with dreams of making discoveries that would elevate humanity's standing in the Galactic Federation. Instead, she had learned a bitter truth that was slowly eating away at her soul. Her research terminal beeped softly. Another message from the Federation's Science Council. Sarah already knew what it would say before she opened it. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the words on the screen. Dr. Chen, your recent findings regarding faster-than-light communication have been reviewed by the Council. While your work shows promise, we have determined that it duplicates existing research by Voralaxian scientists conducted 200 years ago. Your proposal for publication has been denied. Please redirect your efforts to more original areas of study. Sarah closed her eyes and let out a long, shaky breath. This was the 7th time in 3 years that her work had been rejected with the same excuse. The problem was that she had personally reviewed the Voralaxian research they kept citing. It did not exist. She had checked every database, every archive, every historical record. The Federation was lying to her face, and they did not even care that she knew it. She was not alone in this experience. Across human space, brilliant scientists were being systematically suppressed. Their discoveries were being stolen and credited to other species. Their patents were being denied. Their research funding was being cut. And whenever they protested, they were told the same thing over and over. Humanity was too new to the galactic community. They needed to be patient. They needed to learn from their elders. They needed to know their place. Sarah walked back to her quarters and poured herself a glass of water. Her hands were still shaking. She had spent years telling herself that if she just worked harder, if she just proved herself beyond any doubt, things would change. But nothing ever changed. The Federation did not want human brilliance. They wanted human resources. 15,000 light-years away, Captain James Rivera stood on the bridge of the cargo hauler Prosperity and watched his sensor screen with growing dread. 6 ships had appeared on the edge of the system, moving fast and without transponder signals. Pirates. Rivera was 38 years old, former Earth Navy officer who had taken command of civilian vessels after the Federation had refused to expand humanities. Military presence beyond a handful of patrol ships. He had transported goods across this sector for 5 years, and he had always known this day would come. Everyone knew the Cravathi raiders operated freely in this region. Everyone knew they targeted human ships because humans were easy prey. And everyone knew the Federation did nothing to stop it. Captain, said his first officer, a young woman named Lisa Park, "They're closing fast. We don't have the speed to outrun them." Rivera activated the emergency channel to Federation security. "This is cargo hauler Prosperity requesting immediate assistance. We are under attack by hostile vessels at coordinates 74-9 by 1231. We are carrying 200 civilian passengers in critical medical supplies for Colony Hadrian. Request immediate military support." The response came quickly. A bored voice with a synthesizer accent that marked it as Voralaxian. "Prosperity, your distress call has been logged. Military assets are not currently available in your sector. You are advised to comply with any demands made by the hostile vessels to minimize casualties. Federation security out." Rivera stared at the communication console in disbelief. They were just going to let it happen. Again. "Captain, what do we do?" Lisa's voice was tight with fear. Rivera looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Young people who had believed in the dream of space exploration. People who had trusted that the Federation's promises of protection meant something. I thought about the 200 passengers in the cargo hold below. Families, children, people who just wanted a better life on the frontier colonies. "Get everyone to the reinforced sections," he said quietly. "Seal all the blast doors. Send a message to Earth. Make sure they know what happened here." The Cravathi ships opened fire 20 minutes later. The Prosperity Shields. Built to commercial standards because the Federation had refused to allow humans to install military-grade systems, collapsed almost immediately. Rivera did his best to protect his people, but in the end, it was not enough. The pirates boarded, took what they wanted, and left 47 people dead in their wake. Rivera survived. He would spend the rest of his life wishing he had not, on the capital world of the Galactic Federation. Ambassador Marcus Webb walked through the Grand Council chamber with his head held high and his heart full of ice. He was 55 years old, a career diplomat who had represented Earth's interests for 20 years. He had always believed that patience and reason would eventually win the day. He had been wrong. The council chamber was a marvel of architecture, a vast, circular space with seating for representatives from all 47 member species. The oldest and most powerful species occupied the highest tiers, looking down on everyone else. Humanity's seat was on the lowest level, barely elevated above the floor, a deliberate reminder of their status. Webb took his position and waited for permission to speak. It took 40 minutes. Other species addressed the council first, discussing trade agreements and border disputes and scientific exchange programs. Finally, reluctantly, the council speaker acknowledged him. The human representative may speak. Webb stepped forward. He had prepared his speech carefully, choosing every word with precision. Kana delegates, I come before you today to address a matter of grave importance. For 150 years, humanity has been a loyal member of this federation. We have followed every law. We have paid every tax. We have contributed our labor, our resources, and our knowledge to the common good. And yet we are denied the protections that other species take for granted. He pulled up a holographic display showing the attack on the Prosperity. The images were brutal, bodies floating in space, burning corridors, terrified faces. This happened 3 days ago. The Cravathi raiders attacked a human civilian vessel carrying families and medical supplies. 47 people died. When our captain called for help, Federation security told him no military assets were available. This was a lie. There were 6 Federation patrol ships within range. None of them responded. A murmur spread through the chamber. Some delegates looked uncomfortable. Others looked annoyed that Webb had the audacity to challenge the official report. This is not an isolated incident, Webb continued. The past decade alone, there have been 143 attacks on human vessels. Over 2,000 deaths, and in every single case, Federation forces have refused to intervene. Meanwhile, when vessels from other species are attacked in the same regions, help arrives within minutes. He looked up at the higher tiers where the most powerful species sat. We are asking for basic fairness. We are asking for the protection we were promised when we joined this federation. We are asking to be treated like equals instead of like. Second-class citizens who exist only to serve the interests of older species? For a moment, there was silence. Then from the highest tier came a sound that Webb had heard too many times before. Laughter, Councilor Vexther, a massive reptilian being who led the Vorlaxian delegation, was laughing. His scaled chest heaved with amusement, and soon other delegates joined in. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. Ambassador Webb Vexther said, his voice dripping with condescension, "You speak as if humanity has earned equality. You have been part of this federation for barely a century and a half. The Vorlaxian sovereignty has been a member for 50,000 years, Crystalline Collective for 80,000. You are infants playing at politics. And you expect to be treated the same as civilizations that mastered the stars while your ancestors were still living in caves." More laughter, more mockery. "You want protection?" Vexter leaned forward. "Then perhaps you should build better ships. You want your scientists to be taken seriously? And perhaps they should make discoveries that are actually original instead of reinventing what we perfected millennia ago. You want respect?" He paused, his dark eyes fixed on Webb like a predator studying prey. "Respect is earned, Ambassador. Humanity has not earned it." Webb stood frozen in place. It faced rejection before. It faced dismissal and frustration and bureaucratic stonewalling. But this was different. This was pure contempt. This was hatred wrapped in a smile and delivered with the weight of ancient civilizations behind it. He walked back to his seat, without another word. His aide, a young diplomat named Jennifer Kim, reached out and squeezed his hand. "I am sorry," she whispered. "Do not be," Webb replied, his voice empty of emotion. "Now we know the truth." That night, Webb sent an encrypted message to Earth. It contained just 3 words: "They will never change." 3 weeks later, everything fell apart. Colony Zenith Neen was a beautiful world, a terrestrial planet with oceans and forests and mountains that reminded the settlers of Earth. 50,000 humans called it home. They had spent 30 years building cities and farms and schools. They had created something worth protecting. The Kravathi raiders came without warning. Their fleet dropped out of hyperspace in the middle of the night and began bombardment immediately. The colony had no military defenses because the Federation had forbidden human colonies from maintaining armed forces above a minimal security level. The settlers had trusted that Federation law would protect them. They died with that trust still in their hearts. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 50,000 people were dead. Every city was burning. Every farm was destroyed. Every dream was ash. Captain Rivera, who had survived the attack on the Prosperity, watched the footage from his new assignment on a Federation monitoring station. He watched human children burning. He watched families torn apart. He watched everything that mattered being destroyed while Federation ships sat in orbit around nearby systems and did nothing. When the Federation Council finally responded, their statement was brief and devastating. The attack on Colony Zenith Neen is a tragedy, but one that must be understood in the broader context of maintaining political stability in the sector. Kravathi Dominion has expressed willingness to negotiate trade agreements in exchange for certain territorial concessions. The loss of the human colony, while regrettable, is considered an acceptable price for regional peace. An acceptable loss. 50,000 lives. An acceptable loss. The message reached Earth 12 hours later. President Alina Volkov sat in her office in the Global Assembly building in Geneva and read the Federation's statement 3 times. She was 53 years old, former military commander who had transitioned to politics after the unification of Earth's governments. She had spent her entire career trying to build a better future for humanity. And now she was staring at words that reduced 50,000 human beings to an acceptable loss in someone else's political calculations. Her chief of staff, David Martinez, stood silently by the door. He had been crying. Alina had not cried yet. She was not sure she ever would again. There was something cold growing inside her chest, something that felt like ice and iron and ancient rage. "Call an emergency session of the Global Assembly," she said quietly, "and send a priority message to Admiral Thompson. Tell him it is time," Madame President Martinez said carefully. "Are you certain? Once we start this, there is no going back." Alina looked up at him. Her eyes were dry and hard as stone. "They killed 50,000 of our people and called it acceptable. They have spent 150 years treating us like servants and slaves. They have stolen our discoveries, denied us protection, and laughed at our pain. And they think we will just accept it because we are young and weak and afraid." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Somewhere down there, families were going about their lives, unaware that their entire future was about to change. "David, for 150 years we have been patient. We have swallowed every insult, endured every injustice, and told ourselves that if we just worked harder, if we just proved ourselves, things would get better. But they never did, and they never will. Because the Federation does not want us to succeed. They want us to serve." She turned back to face him. "So yes, I am certain. Send the message. Activate protocol endurance. It is time to show the galaxy who we really are." Martinez nodded and left to carry out her orders. Alina stood alone in her office, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, her people were suffering. Somewhere out there, predators circled human colonies like wolves around sheep. Somewhere out there, the Federation Council was laughing about how they had put humanity in its place. But that was about to change, because humanity had not spent 150 years being weak and helpless. They had spent 150 years preparing, waiting, watching, learning everything they could about their enemies, while pretending to be harmless and naive. The Federation thought humanity was prey. They were about to learn the difference between patience and weakness. They were about to learn what happens when you push a species too far. They were about to learn that the most dangerous predator is the one you mistake for prey. Alina pressed a button on her desk. Across Earth, across every human colony, across every ship and station where humans lived and worked. The same message appeared on every screen. Protocol Endurance is now active. All personnel report to designated stations. The time has come. And in the darkness between the stars and places the Federation had never thought to look, vast fleets began to wake from their long sleep. Ships that had been built in secret over 8 decades, weapons that had been developed in hidden laboratories, soldiers who had trained their entire lives for a war they hoped would never come. The day humanity said enough had finally arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Awakening, the first ships emerged from the asteroid belt of the Kepler-7 system exactly 48 hours after Protocol Endurance was activated. They came in formations that had been practiced 1,000 times in secret simulations. Sleek warships painted in charcoal gray ate their hulls designed to scatter sensor signals and blend into the darkness of space. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from her research station as the hidden fleet. It revealed itself. She had known about Protocol Endurance for 5 years, ever since Earth intelligence had recruited her to work on the communication systems that would coordinate the operation. Still, seeing it in reality took her breath away. There were hundreds of ships, maybe thousands, all of them built with technology that the Federation had told humanity was impossible. Her terminal chimed with an incoming message. It was encrypted with codes she had helped design. Dr. Chen, this is Commander Anna Volkov of the HSS Retribution. We are en route to Colony Zenith 9 to extract survivors and secure the system. Your research on quantum entanglement communication has been declassified and will be transmitted to all human vessels within the hour. The Federation's lies end today. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your sacrifice. Humanity remembers. Sarah sat down heavily in her chair. Her work, the research that had been suppressed and denied and stolen for years, was finally going to be used. Not just by humanity, but soon by any species that wanted it, because that was part of Protocol Endurance too. Everything humanity had discovered, everything the Federation had tried to hide, would be released to the entire galaxy. The truth would set them all free. She began transmitting her data to the communication network. Within minutes, every species in the Federation would have access to faster-than-light communication technology that would revolutionize their civilizations. They would know exactly who had discovered it and who had tried to keep it secret. Commander Anna Volkov stood on the bridge of the HSS Retribution and studied the tactical display before her. She was 34 years old, the youngest fleet commander in human history, and she had been preparing for this moment her entire adult life. Her mother was President Alina Volkov. Her father had died on Colony Zenith-9. The Retribution was a dreadnought, one of 50 that humanity had built in the shadows of uninhabited systems. It was larger than any Federation warship and armed with weapons that combined human engineering with innovations that no other species had considered. The Federation had assumed that because they kept humanity's official military small and weak, humans had no capacity for war. They had been catastrophically wrong. Status report, Anna said calmly. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Marcus Stone, responded immediately. All ships report ready. We have 240 vessels in this battle group. Long-range sensors show minimal Cravathi presence at Zenith 9. They left a small occupation force. It's probably no more than 20 ships. They think no one will challenge them, Anna said quietly. Send the message we prepared. Open channel, all frequencies, so everyone can hear it. The communication officer nodded. Channel open, Commander. Anna took a deep breath and spoke in a voice that was clear and cold and absolutely certain. Is Commander Anna Volkov of the Human Space Forces to all Cravathi vessels in the Zenith 9 system. You have murdered 50,000 human civilians. You have destroyed a peaceful colony. You have committed crimes that cannot be forgiven. You have one opportunity to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. If you refuse, you will be destroyed. This is your only warning. There was a long pause. Then laughter came over the channel. a guttural clicking sound that was the Cravathi equivalent of mockery. "Foolish humans," said a voice thick with contempt. "You dare threaten the Cravathi dominion? You have no fleet. You have no power. You are prey. And we will teach you what happens to prey that forgets its place." Anna nodded to her tactical officer. "Weapons free. Show them what humans are capable of when we stop holding back." The Battle of Zenith 9 lasted 17 minutes. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Human ships moved with precision that came from decades of secret training. Their weapons, built from technology that combined human innovation with reverse-engineered Federation designs, cut through Cravathi shields like they were made of paper. Missiles that could track targets through hyperspace. Energy weapons that adapted to counter any defense. Electronic warfare systems that turned enemy sensors blind and deaf. The Cravathi raiders had terrorized human space for years. They had killed thousands. They had operated with absolute impunity because the Federation refused to stop them, and humanity was not allowed to defend itself. They died never understanding what had hit them. When it was over, 19 Cravathi ships were destroyed. One survived, damaged and adrift. Anna ordered it taken intact. The crew would stand trial for their crimes. Humanity would not become what the Federation was. They would not laugh at massacres or call murder acceptable. The retribution descended through the atmosphere of Zenith 9, leading a fleet of rescue ships. The planet was still burning in places. The cities were ruins, but beneath the rubble, survivors were emerging. 50,000 had died, but 3,000 had somehow lived through the bombardment. 3,000 people who had hidden in bunkers and basements and bomb shelters, waiting for help that they feared would never come. Anna stood in the cargo bay as the first survivors were brought aboard. They were dirty, injured, traumatized. Many were crying. A young girl, no more than 8 years old, looked up at Ayane with eyes that had seen too much. "Are you real?" the girl whispered. "Did someone really come?" Anna knelt down and gently took the girl's hand. "We are real, and we will never let this happen again. I promise you." The girl burst into tears and threw her arms around Anna. And for the first time in 3 weeks, Commander Anna Volkov let herself feel something other than cold rage. She held the child and promised herself that this was what they were fighting for. Not revenge, not conquest, but the simple right to protect their own people across the galaxy. Similar operations were unfolding with devastating precision. Captain James Rivera, who had survived the attack on the Prosperity and spent years living with survivors' guilt, now commanded the HSS Vengeance. His target was a Cravathi military installation in the Tari system. One of the bases from which raids into human space were launched. Rivera had spent those years studying everything about the Cravathi, their tactics, their technology, their culture, their weaknesses. He knew them better than they knew themselves, and he had helped design the battle plan that would destroy their ability to threaten humanity ever again. The attack on Taris was timed to coincide with 14 other strikes across Cravathi space. Human forces hit military targets with surgical precision. Weapons factories, shipyards, supply depots, communication hubs. They avoided civilian areas because humanity remembered what it felt like to be the target of indiscriminate violence. They would not become the monsters they fought. The Cravathi military, accustomed to fighting weak and poorly armed opponents, collapsed under the assault. Their ships were destroyed. Their bases were captured. Their leadership was forced to make a choice they had never expected to face: surrender or be annihilated. They chose surrender. On the Federation capital world, chaos reigned. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood in his office and watched the emergency council session on his monitor. The chamber was in complete disarray. Delegates were shouting at each other. Some species were demanding military action against humanity. Others were calling for immediate negotiations. A few, those who had themselves suffered under Federation oppression, were openly celebrating. Webb's aide Jennifer Kim burst into the office carrying a datapad. "Ambassador, you need to see this. Dr. Chen just released her research. Every species in the galaxy now has access to faster-than-light communication technology. and the transmission included full documentation, showing that the Federation Science Council has been systematically suppressing human discoveries for 150 years. Took the pad and read through the data. It was damning. Names, dates, specific examples of human scientists whose work had been stolen or destroyed. Evidence that the Federation had been lying to everyone, not just humans, about technological progress for centuries. Send it to every news network in the Federation, Webb said, and prepare a statement from Earth. It is time the galaxy knew the truth about what has been done in the name of stability and order. Within hours, the revelations had spread across civilized space. Species that had trusted the Federation for millennia were learning that they had been deceived. Technologies that could have improved their lives had been kept from them. Scientific progress had been deliberately stalled to maintain the power of the oldest civilizations, the Federation, which had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years, was coming apart at the seams. Councillor Vexter, the Vorlaxian who had mocked Ambassador Webb just weeks ago, now found himself facing something he had never experienced before: accountability. His fellow council members were demanding answers. Why had human research been suppressed? Why had human colonies been denied protection? Why had 50,000 civilians been declared an acceptable loss? Vexter had no good answers. The truth was that the Federation had kept humanity down because young, innovative species threatened the established order. They asked uncomfortable questions. They developed new technologies. They challenged the ancient hierarchies that had ruled for longer than most civilizations had existed. But Vexter could not say that. So instead, he did what powerful beings always do when confronted with their crimes. He tried to shift blame. Humans have attacked Federation space, he declared to the Council. They have committed acts of war against the Kravathi Dominion. They must be stopped before their aggression threatens all of us. The humans attacked military targets that were used to launch raids on their civilians. Came a new voice. Everyone turned. Standing at the entrance to the council chamber was Admiral Thompson of the Human Space Forces. He was 67 years old, a career military officer who had spent the last 40 years building humanity's secret fleet. He walked with a cane, his body bearing the scars of old injuries, but his eyes were sharp, and his voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. Admiral Thompson, Vexter said, his voice tight with barely contained rage. You are not authorized to enter this chamber. Security, remove this no. The word came from an unexpected source. Councillor Zephes, of the Crystalline Collective, one of the oldest species in the Federation, had spoken. I would like to hear what the Admiral has to say. Perhaps it is time we listened to humans for once. Thompson nodded his thanks and moved to the center of the chamber. He moved slowly, but deliberately, making sure every delegate saw him, saw the scars on his face, saw the determination in his eyes. For 150 years, Thompson began. Humanity has followed every rule of this Federation. We paid our taxes. We followed your laws. We accepted your judgment even when it hurt us. We believed that patience and good faith would eventually lead to respect and equality. He looked around the chamber at faces representing dozens of species. We were wrong. You never intended to treat us as equals. You saw us as a resource to be exploited and a threat to be contained. You suppressed our scientists. You denied us protection. And when pirates murdered our people, you called it acceptable. That was a decision made for the greater good, Vexter began. 50,000 dead civilians is not the greater good. Thompson's voice cracked like thunder. That is genocide. That is cowardice. That is evil, dressed up in the language of politics. He pulled out a data chip and held it up. This contains evidence of crimes committed by members of this council. Bribery, corruption, suppression of technology, deliberate policies designed to keep younger species weak and dependent. I am transmitting this data to every network in the galaxy as we speak. The age of secrets is over. Vexter lunged forward, his massive frame moving with surprising speed. You will give me that data, or I will. He never finished the sentence. Security drones, controlled by species that had seen enough, surrounded him. Councillor Zephes spoke again, her crystalline form glowing with cold light, Vexter of the Vorlaxian sovereignty. You are under arrest for crimes against member species and abuse of council authority. You will be held for trial. The chamber erupted into chaos. Other council members tried to flee. Some were stopped. Some escaped. The Federation, built on 50,000 years of tradition and power, is collapsing. Thompson watched it all with satisfaction. Then he activated his communication link. All units, mission accomplished. Begin Phase 2. It is time to build something better. Across human space, the broadcasts began. Not threats. Not demands. But invitations. President Alina Volkov appeared on screens across the galaxy. Her image transmitted through Dr. Chen's faster-than-light communication network. She spoke in a voice that was calm, clear, and absolutely sincere. People of the galaxy, my name is Alina Volkov, and I am the President of United Earth. Today, humanity has taken actions that some will call aggressive. Some will call us warmongers and rebels. But I ask you to consider what led to this moment. The screen shifted to show images from Colony Zenith 9, the destruction, the dead, the survivors being pulled from rubble. The Federation told us that 50,000 murdered civilians were an acceptable loss. They told us that we should accept being victims because challenging our oppressors might disturb political stability. They told us to know our place. The image returned to Elena's face. We are done knowing our place. We are done accepting injustice for the sake of peace. We are done believing that patience will be rewarded with respect. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. But we are not interested in conquest. We are not interested in revenge. We are interested in building a galaxy where every species is truly equal, where young civilizations are not crushed to maintain old power structures, where justice is not reserved for the strong. The image changed again, this time showing designs for new government structures, new laws, new systems of representation. We are proposing the Terran Accords, a new framework for galactic cooperation built on principles of equality, transparency, and mutual protection. Every species will have equal representation. Every species will have the right to defend itself. And no species will ever again be told that the massacre of their people is acceptable. She paused. Join us, or do not. But know that humanity will no longer participate in a system designed to keep us down. We are offering our hand in friendship. But if you raise your fist, you will discover that we can strike back. The transmission ended, and across the galaxy, species began to make their choices. Some, like the Cravathi, chose defiance. The remaining fleets gathered for one final assault on human space. Determined to crush this upstart species before they became too powerful, Captain Rivera was waiting for them in the Crimson Nebula with a fleet of 500 ships. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for centuries. Rivera used the nebula's gases to hide his forces, appearing and disappearing like ghosts, striking from unexpected angles, using the environment as a weapon. The Cravathi fleet was destroyed. Their military power was broken forever. Other species chose negotiation. They saw which way the wind was blowing and decided that joining humanity was better than fighting them. Counselor Zephys of the Crystalline Collective became an unexpected ally, using her influence to sway other ancient species toward accepting the Terran Accords. And some species, those who had themselves suffered under Federation oppression, chose celebration. They saw humanity's actions as a path to their own liberation. They sent messages of support and offers of alliance. The Federation, realizing it was losing control, made one final attempt to reassert authority. They declared humanity a rogue species and called for a military coalition to restore order. 20 species answered the call. 80 species refused. The Federation, for the first time in its long history, no longer had the power to enforce its will. The war that everyone feared never fully materialized. There were skirmishes. There were battles. But nothing on the scale that the old powers had hoped for. Because too many species had seen the evidence of Federation corruption. Too many species had been given access to suppressed technologies. Too many species had decided that they too were done knowing their place. 6 months after Protocol Endurance was activated, Representatives from 103 species gathered on a neutral station to negotiate the Terran Accords. The Federation Council, or what remained of it, was not invited. The negotiations took 3 months. They were difficult, contentious, and sometimes seemed on the verge of collapse. But they continued, because enough species had decided that building something better was worth the effort. The final document was signed by all 103 species. It established the Galactic Coalition, a government built on principles of equality and mutual respect. Every species had equal representation. Every species had the right to defend itself. And every species had access to the technologies that the Federation had hoarded for millennia. The day the Accords were signed, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the audience and wept. Her research had helped make this possible. The work that had been suppressed for so long was now part of the foundation of a new galactic order. Captain Rivetta was there too. His uniform decorated with medals he had earned in battles he wished had never been necessary. He thought about the 47 people who had died on the Prosperity, about the 50,000 who had died on Zenith 9, about all the humans who had suffered while the Federation looked away. They had not died in vain. Ambassador Webb signed the Accords on behalf of humanity. His hand was steady. When it was done, he said just 4 words. This is a beginning, and across the galaxy. Species that had lived under the Federation's thumb for thousands of years began to breathe freely for the first time. The age of forced patience was over. The age of earned respect had begun. Asterisk comment for next part.